Okay, everyone, I am super honored and excited today to talk to the living legend, Rob Huebel, aka Leo, on the show. I know this much is true. You might know him from the past on Human Giant or recently on Medical Police. Rob, how are you doing today?
I'm hanging in there, man. I think this pandemic is not fun for people, but I'm trying to make the best of it. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. And I think what is really important about your role in this show, I know this much is true, is in such a somber show, your character adds a lot of humor to it and comic relief, which I think is much needed. And I also think that it's interesting because it's a very complicated character in Leo, because we see in episode 2 when he's working at this used car dealership and he's giving this idea to Dominic to basically sue Hatch and use blackmail with the picture of the balls, but that he would sue them even if they released his brother. And that's when Dominic's like, oh, of course you would do that. And you're like, in a heartbeat. So we also see, though, at that same scene later on that you're saying you'd visit Thomas and you do such a nice gesture to your best friend in Dominic. So did you find it challenging to play a character that like has to be sleazy in a way, but also comes off very likable?
That's funny that you describe him that way. Yeah, I mean, I think he's just, like you said, I think he's like a hustler. You know, I think that's kind of a shitty job, you know, selling cars, and he doesn't want to be doing that. He's kind of stuck working there because his father-in-law runs the car dealership. You know, he's just sort of trapped, but he really wants to audition for stuff and you know, do acting stuff. But I'm pretty good at playing sleazy people. I sort of that's sort of my forte. But I think with Leo, the trick with that is not to really make him sleazy, because I don't think Dominic would be friends with a guy that's just sleazy. I think he's more just like, you know, he's like a salesman. You know, he's just like one of those guys that's a little bit slick maybe. But I think in episode 2, you saw a little bit of humanity and, you know, just a hint of like, oh, this is a real guy. And he actually has a history with Dominic, and they go way back, and he knows Thomas from way back also. So, yeah, I think that was just sort of like a nice moment between those characters to show a kind of a long friendship, that they've been through a lot of shit together, and Leo sort of knows what he's going through, you know, so he's trying to kind of, you know, offer any kind of help or support that he can.
That's interesting you say that, and I like your description there about more of it being slick than sleazy per se, and it's interesting because I wonder, when you're playing this character, you play it so well, are you getting the character of Leo directly from the book it's based on, or did you kind of find it somewhere else you got inspired?
Well, you know, Derek Cianfrance directed the whole series, and he's just like total sidebar, but he's just the coolest guy, and like really allows actors the space and the time to do whatever they need to do. And like, I'll give you an example. Like, I didn't know Ruffalo at all. I had never met him. He's friends with some friends of mine, but I didn't know him, and I was nervous to meet him. You know, it's the fucking Incredible Hulk. So Derek wanted, you know, us to have this history together in sort of a shorthand in the way that we talk to each other. And, you know, so the conversation just kind of flows naturally, and you talk over each other and stuff like that. So anyway, Derek had me come to New York early, where we filmed it, like a week early, and just hang out with Ruffalo. So like, you know, Mark came to my hotel and like picked me up, and we just drove around for a long time talking about stuff. And then there's a scene in episode 3, I think, that you mentioned, where we're playing racquetball. Well, Mark and I don't know how to play racquetball. Like, I don't know if anyone knows how to play racquetball anymore. That was like kind of popular. That was a popular pastime, I think, in the 80s. But I don't know if there's a lot of people that are still, you know, hauling ass over to the racquetball court. So Derek wanted us to, but he wanted us to be really good. Like, he didn't want us to be bad. You know, this was supposedly something that we did together in our off time. So same thing. He had us like come to set like a few days early and like go to this racquetball club in New York and learn to play with this like instructor. And, you know, we're both terrible. Like, I think we both like, we're just flailing around the court. But, after some practice, I think we got okay at it.
Right.
And I think it's going to, it's all going to be how they edit it. They shoot it from a million different angles so they can kind of edit it to make you look good, when we're not really that good. But I think the point I'm trying to make is that Derek just really he's a real stickler for things feeling totally natural and totally real. And he doesn't really want it to seem like you're acting at all. So he wants you to kind of like experience, whatever the scene is. There was a scene, I mean, this is not funny at all, but there was a scene in last week's episode, just a very quick scene of the funeral of Dominic and Dessa's, baby that died in the
Sure.
crib. And so there's a real quick flashback, and it's probably like 30 seconds on the screen. Well, when we shot that, Derek had the entire congregation of that church, like a real church, come to the church that day, fill the church, had a real priest and a real altar boy do a real funeral, and they just like didn't stop. Like Derek didn't say action or cut. He just said start the funeral, and they started doing a funeral. And so you're sitting there as an actor, and at first you're like, well, this is kind of weird. And then like a few minutes in, you're like, oh, wow, this is really sad. And then about a minute later, you're like, oh, my God. So, you can't help but get emotional because you're at a funeral for a child.
Right.
So my point is Derek just loves that sort of authenticity and will do anything to make it seem real. And so that's the kind of stuff that he does. And I've never worked that way before. I've never worked with anyone like that before. And it was so cool and so different. So I think that's kind of what helps make the show so special. It seems really authentic and emotional and genuine. And that's because most of the scenes are like, he would set it up so that you are actually experiencing that scene, as realistically as possible.
So you're telling me that you're really going one-on-one with Mark Ruffalo in racquetball here. Like, are you a better player than him, would you say?
I mean, I don't want to start an internet war with the Hulk, but yeah, you can. Yeah, I would put that out there. I'm comfortable in saying that I dominated the court. I would say that with a capital D, dominated.
Okay, and you're telling me that's real sweat that was just drenching your shirt. That wasn't any effects or anything.
Totally real sweat on me. On Mark, of course, they have to bring in the sweat spray, the glycerin. They have to like make him look sweaty, not me, bro. I was in it.
I love that. So speaking too about how Derek directs you and the whole cast and just sets the scene, I wonder when I really love some of your humorous lines here in episode 2, when you say to Dominic that you're auditioning for a horror film now and that you're the lead detective and that there's Christian teenagers being murdered. And then you go on and say he looks like dog shit and basically tell him he looks like a basset hound. How much of this is improv or how much of it's like to the script? Like, does he give you guys room to do that?
Yeah, I just improvised that part. Like, he has a script that he wrote, but, taken from the book. So I think Derek, I'm not sure, you'd have to ask him how he wrote it, but I'm assuming he went through the book and adapted all of those scenes and cut them down and kind of reworked some parts. But, the way I kind of assume that when I'm hired, because my background is an improviser, I assume that when I'm hired, most directors want me to kind of do that a little bit, at least. So I usually try to do exactly what they have on the script the first few times. So we get that. And then I'll just start veering off into like weirdo land and saying kind of whatever I want.
Sure.
And so it's fun. It's fun for me because it keeps it different. And I think it's fun for Mark because it gives him something to react to. And then Mark's improvising also, but that goes back to what I was saying that Derek likes is he just wants it to seem like, oh, these are just two people talking that know each other. So I'm not waiting for Mark to finish his line before I talk. Like, we're just talking over each other. He's reacting to what I'm saying. So, yeah, I think I made that up. I think in the script it said that I was auditioning for a movie, like an independent movie. And so I said that a few times, and then I just changed it up to a horror movie, and I just sort of threw in the thing that I was the lead detective, and these are Christian teens that are being murdered. So yeah, it's just trying to be specific and weird.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. And I wonder too, watching this, I think what got me excited about when you were posting about being in this show, it's always interesting because I kind of look at your roles in this show and also in Transparent, where there is like a good amount of serious you're playing too. And I wonder if you would ever consider, if someone came to you and wanted you to do a full serious role, like, is that something you see in your future you'd want to tackle?
Oh yeah, no doubt. I think it'd be really fun. I mean, it's really scary to me to do super serious stuff. Like I'm really comfortable. Like Transparent, it was sort of like the perfect job for me because it's so real and grounded and emotional. But I could also improvise a lot in that and kind of be, sort of funny in that every now, like that show is really about family. Also, it's just about a very complicated family. And so, I love that sort of stuff. I think the sweet spot for me is something where I can be serious, but also, throw in some comedy every now and then, but with a straight face, like that. I like being the funny guy in a drama, or
Sure.
sort of like the sarcastic weirdo guy, like I think that's a great spot to be. If it was just like straight up, like, I don't know that I could do what Ruffalo is doing. Ruffalo is doing something that is like next level. Like
Right.
that is so intense and so layered, and I'm sure he gained all this weight or first he lost all this weight and then they, filmed one side of him and then he went away for 6 weeks and gained all this weight to play Thomas.
Right.
And so, that's intense, but he's just doing I think the most incredible acting like that I've seen in a long time. I should also just very quickly give a shout out to the guy who you will not see in the movie. Well, you might see him I think they gave him another smaller scene, but Mark is acting, you probably know this already, but Mark is acting opposite a guy that they replaced digitally. This guy named Gabe Fazio. You should talk to him. You can find him on Instagram. Gabe is this actor that played Thomas the whole time when Mark was being Dominic, and then turned around and played Dominic when Mark had to be Thomas. And so it gave Mark someone to react to and do his scenes with, so all of that emotion that you're seeing in Mark is being given to, by this other actor who you don't see. He's just replaced, they replace him digitally, or they just cut him out. So he's not in it,
Right.
And but the guy's just like a really cool guy and a great actor. And it's like, I thought that was a really neat sort of Easter egg about the show, is that there's this other guy out there who you don't even see because he's been edited out of the movie,
Yeah, it's like he's a complete unsung hero, and it's really cool of you to make him a sung hero now. And like, I just think too, Rob, like I do think you can act that level of Ruffalo. You want to know why? Because that Instagram video you posted with reacting to the Thunderbirds giving you the middle finger and that crying you were doing, I was like, this guy, man, this guy. But let me just say, my final question for you is, basically, I grew up on Human Giant. I think it shaped some of my odd humor in my head. And especially my favorite sketch you ever did was being jealous of the whale at SeaWorld. That was just incredible. And I
was just going to say, when I yelled at the whale, you swim in my pit.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. So funny. And it just showed me really just where you could go in comedy. And it was so fresh and awesome. And I see you're posting a lot of behind the scenes clips of Human Giant on Instagram. So I do want to ask, it'd be silly if I didn't, but is there ever a chance we get another sort of reunion of Human Giant down the road?
People keep thinking that I'm alluding to something like that. What it really is Paul Scheer just sent me a Dropbox folder of all of these old pictures from like 10 years ago. And I was like, it was all pictures that I didn't have and that he had taken with his But the answer is I don't know. I would love to do that. We've actually talked about, Shira and I were sort of just messing around and saying, we should do a reunion on Zoom. Because like Mr. Show just did that, and I thought that was super funny, and I'm such a fan of all those guys. So we were saying, we should do a reunion on Zoom. I think Aziz, I haven't talked to him in a little bit. I think he's living in London, and then the real sort of speed bump right now is that our director Jason Wallner just had a baby, and so I don't think he's in the mood right now to fuck around on Zoom with us, as he's dealing with the baby and not getting any sleep. But who knows? My answer is who knows? Maybe we can get it organized. I would love to do it.
Yeah, that's exciting just to hear. That's a great answer, Rob. Rob, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it. Everyone, please make sure to check out Rob in Medical Police on Netflix. It's currently on there. And also, I Know This Much Is True every Sunday, 9 p.m. on HBO. And you can also get it on the HBO Go app. Rob, is there anything else you want to plug?
No, man, I really appreciate it. I think you covered all my bases for me. And I thank you so much for watching the show and for being a fan of comedy and good television.
Yeah, man. I can't wait to hear your first Emmy speech coming up. It's going to be great.
Okay, thanks, buddy.
Have a good one.